Well, good afternoon, and thank you for joining me for this solution spotlight on the topic of integration for DocuSign eSignature, how to get important signatures on time. Again, this is Navient and actually Guy Schrader from Navient speaking. I am the manager of sales engineering here. I will be your sole presenter today. And as usual, just to have a couple of housekeeping items before we get started here. With the GoToWebinar being recorded, your voice is being muted. So if you do need to communicate with me in any form or fashion, please use the chat box for any issues that you might be having with the webinar, or please use the questions panel to ask questions later within the webinar. We'll take some time at the end of the webinar to answer any questions that you might have. There will also be a survey that pops up after you close out of the GoToWebinar. This year, 2020, we actually have customized all of our presentations, these solution spotlights, as well as the support webinars based upon the feedback that you've provided us. So if there is a topic that you would like to see, we encourage you to provide that feedback to us, and we surely want to be presenting topics based upon what you, our customers, wish to see going forward. So without any further ado, our agenda for today, again, is on integration for DocuSign eSignature. This is an OnBase product. So answering the typical questions within the agenda: what is it? Why do you need it? How does it work? We'll also get into some demonstration and ultimately get around to how do you get that, as well as a little bit of a recap and time for Q&A at the back end of things. So as we get started here, just for a little warm-up from your perspective, I'm going to pop up a poll here relatively quickly, asking you the question of, have you ever previously signed documents electronically with DocuSign, whether that be some real estate documents that you've had, closing on loans? I know it's being used quite a bit throughout a variety of industries. It seems like real estate quite a bit. I see it quite a bit also within the realm of finance, so anything with your financial institution. And as you guys are providing some information here, we're seeing about 93% of you actually have used DocuSign previously. That's now bumped down to about 88%. But again, a majority of the folks on this call, yes, you know what DocuSign is, but the 17% of you currently that are saying no, fully understood. You might not have a really good understanding of what it looks like from the signee perspective, but we will surely be covering that as we go into this presentation. And just so that you're aware, the final numbers that I'm seeing here, 84% said yes, 16% said no. Thank you for humoring me on that particular topic, but it also helps me understand where you guys are coming from your perspective. So the highest level, what is the integration for DocuSign? We're starting with a document in OnBase. In some form or fashion, that document in OnBase is being uploaded to the DocuSign eSignature service. That is a whole separate product line that is not an OnBase product whatsoever. So just search for DocuSign.com. You'll find all kinds of information on what DocuSign can do. But really what that helps us to do is now taking any of those documents inside of OnBase, we can automate the tasks surrounding any type of signature management. And what we're ultimately doing is we're handing that document off to DocuSign, is determining where we need to gather signatures, any initials, dates, names, titles, company names, so on and so forth. There's a variety of different custom fields that can be configured in DocuSign so that we start out with a uncompleted document in some form or fashion. Once DocuSign is done, we have our signatures as well as any other required fields for information that needs to be provided by that individual, that organization, that third party. DocuSign effectively is managing what they term an envelope. That envelope is going to be routed through email notifications to all of the different signers, the individuals that you designate, saying, I need to capture some information from these folks. And all that they really need to have is an email address. That's all that DocuSign needs to know. They're not logging into OnBase. They're effectively clicking on a link in an email to get to DocuSign to open up that particular document and provide the signatures and other fields that are being requested. When DocuSign is done, that completed document is brought back into OnBase automatically. It then becomes a read-only rendition of the document, so that now, overstamping any prior document that you had, you now see that signed revision with the entire audit trail. So at a high level, why do you need it? Well, really, if you're working with third-party organizations that you need to get some signatures. Again, those individuals are not going to be OnBase users. You don't want to extend your OnBase system. For those people that are familiar with OnBase, you realize that there's client licensing that's required from that. No, this could effectively be routed to anybody in the world that has an email address. That's all that we really need. Those agreements that are signed within DocuSign are legally binding in 180 plus countries. It complies with all of the legal perspective in the U.S., specifically the U.S. eSign Act that's out there. You're really speeding that routing and signing of documents and agreements. Think if you don't have an electronic signing capability, bundling up paper, mailing that in some form or fashion, maybe certified mail, the cost and the time to do that obviously really slows down how quickly business can get done. Not only that, when you would actually physically mail that document off, you really have no visibility to where things stand in the rest of the signing process. With this DocuSign integration, you have complete visibility anytime that you want to check it from OnBase, that you just say, show me the DocuSign status. It will show you who's received notifications, who has signed that particular document, and if that document has been returned to you. Really, that does speed up the process as we talked about before. DocuSign has provided some statistics saying that 82% of their agreements that go through their service are completed in 1 day. And on average, and that's great for individuals, yeah, I get a document, I know what I'm dealing with, I'm signing that pretty darn quickly. But if you're going through contract negotiations and things like that, obviously you have legal counsels that are involved. On average, there's a 9-day faster turnaround time that DocuSign has been able to record versus any type of paper signing process. Your risk is minimized. Everything from a security perspective has been satisfied by DocuSign. Again, they're the ones that are taking care of that true routing, maintaining that document, ensuring that it only gets to the hands of the individuals that need to see that document. So it follows all of those stringent security standards. Ultimately, you're reducing costs. DocuSign, again, provides a statistic saying that you're saving $36 per document compared to paper signing processes. And finally, it's eco-friendly. If we have to go the hard copy route, you're generating paper. There's obviously carbon going into the atmosphere for getting that document from point A to point B and point B to point C, so on and so forth. Everything being done electronically is friendly for our environment. So how does it work? What we're doing inside of OnBase, once the integration for DocuSign eSign is licensed, you have the ability to go ahead and configure your solution with a DocuSign enterprise account. As I mentioned before, you need to acquire that separately through DocuSign. They have a variety of different levels of accounts. You would work with them directly to procure that. But once we set up that enterprise account, that allows OnBase to connect to DocuSign. If we have templated documents, so these are going to be agreements. They're always going to look the same. Obviously, some of the fields are going to be different. The signatures are going to be different, things like that. But if I know where the signatures need to be captured, we can configure that template inside of DocuSign and match that to the appropriate OnBase document type that's going to be set up. And again, we'll see that a little bit later within the demo. You can then, on an ad hoc basis, take any document that's been configured to be able to be routed to DocuSign and say, I want to send that to DocuSign. And how we do that varies just a little bit depending upon which client that you're using. Inside the OnBase Unity client, when you have an open document, there's going to be a DocuSign button that's available. You depress that. There's an option to say send to DocuSign. Or if you have a hit list of documents, the document search results, via the right-click option, DocuSign, send to DocuSign. If you're dealing with the Windows client or the traditional FIT client, you do have the right-click capability from the document search results to say hosted signing, upload for signature. That's connecting to that exact same DocuSign service to distribute that document. Notice I'm not bringing up any information here for the web client, just in full disclosure. There's limited capabilities in what we can do inside the web client, but again, we'll get back to that in just a few moments. So once we've said send this to DocuSign, there's going to be a DocuSign send window that opens up. This is assuming that we're not dealing with any templates. There you're going to have to go ahead and provide DocuSign who are the recipients, their email addresses as well as their names. We have to identify where on the document we want to capture those signatures, initials, dates, any other fields that might be out there, so on and so forth. DocuSign is then going to send email notifications to the different recipients, the signers, and you can set up a signing order if you have multiple parties that need to sign this agreement to make sure that it gets to the appropriate individuals and orders. And then we also ensure that all the signatures, all the fields are completed. You do have the capability of coming in here and saying, these are required fields, these are optional fields. And then finally, when that signed document is completed within DocuSign, it comes back into OnBase automatically. You don't really see anything further with that. So let's get into a little bit of a demo here. And this is the Unity client. And really from here, this perspective, any way that we can retrieve a document, we can start this process. I'm showing custom queries here. So here we can see we got this contract document search. I'm searching for Dell Champs. When I click search, there are my search results, however you have your OnBase system configured. Via a right-click option, there we see that DocuSign with a few different options, sending to DocuSign, modifying the envelope, viewing the DocuSign status, and voiding the envelope. We're not going to get into all the details here, but when I say view that status, this document has not been uploaded to DocuSign. So conversely, if I double-click on this document and open it up, and you can see here, this is a Microsoft Word document that I'm starting. There's some flexibility, and we'll cover that later. But via that DocuSign button, I can say, let's send this to DocuSign. Using that enterprise account that's been configured inside of OnBase, we're connecting to DocuSign now. And it says, since I'm doing this on an ad hoc basis, DocuSign needs more information. That's going to open up this DocuSign send window that now provides us with the ability to say, who does this go to, where are the fields that we actually need to have signature and any other information provided. Notice on this view, this is a PDF view. We always convert the document to PDF to send to DocuSign. I can enter who the recipients are, so names and emails, and as I was going through the testing here, this is keeping track of all of my information so I don't have to type in everything here. We can also come in up to actions and edit the message itself. So think of the subject or any of the body itself. Please sign this agreement is what I'm providing here. I could provide a message, but I just click done. And now this is where we're getting into the document itself and saying, where do I need signatures? We're going to go ahead and add an initial section on the bottom of every page as I go along here. It's as simple as clicking on the left side there within those different fields and then clicking on the document itself where I need to capture the initials. And we'll see in a few moments here, once I get to the last page of this document, I have some areas where I want to get some signatures. So I can take that signature field and again, decide where I want that to be. We're going to put that over by the receiving party. And then any additional information, name. So the recipient can provide their full name, their title. The system's going to automatically record the date that this document was signed on that particular document. That's all that we need to do to ad hoc send this. Click on the send button instead of DocuSign, off it goes. Behind the scenes, that notification is being sent, but again, from your view inside of OnBase, I can view that DocuSign status and see real time, it's communicating with DocuSign and bringing back that envelope history saying that an invitation was sent to gschrader@navient.com. That's where we currently stand. Anybody can check this anytime in the future. Now given, there's a couple other options. If I wanted to void this envelope saying, let's cancel it, we don't need that anymore, I can even modify, so on and so forth. So that's quite simply how we get it to DocuSign. Now switching over to the other view of things, I am now a recipient of that email. I need to provide a signature. So this is my Microsoft Outlook that we have up here. Here I can see that I have a document or an email that's been sent to me saying, please sign this document. There's my subject, my body. I just click on view the document. This has nothing to do with connecting with OnBase right now whatsoever. It doesn't require the user register with DocuSign either, but they can start in here and just say, let's continue. Let's look at everything inside this document where I need to go ahead and capture information, our initials. As I click there, since I've already set up as a DocuSign user, it's using the initials that I've said store for me. Again, I'll show you a little bit later where that information is provided, but clicking there provides my signature that's been stored, name, title, and then the date that's associated with it. I just finished that up. It's as simple as that to sign that particular document. Now, as an individual that signed the document, once all of the parties have signed, I've just set this one up to say that there's the single party that needs to sign this. That same individual will receive an email back from DocuSign saying all parties have signed. Here's your copy of that particular document. We don't have to redistribute that from OnBase. That happens automatically within DocuSign. And as I take a look at this document, this PDF that's been rendered for us, it has the whole signature panel, so we can track whether the signature is valid, if anything has been modified since that document was initially signed, so on and so forth. Where is it signed? All of that fun stuff that's embedded natively inside the PDF. So that's what that recipient would see. And then switching back into OnBase here, using a different method for retrieval, I can come in here and retrieve that same document. Here I'm going to put in my entity name of DelChamps, which is what I was dealing with before. Click Find. Since there's only the single document that I had out there for DelChamps, it's going to open up that document. And I can see here that's been signed through DocuSign. My initials are popping up as I get down to the last page. There's that same rendition, including all the signatures and all of that information with, again, as a PDF, showing all of that information pertaining to that particular signature. And I can see here within my DocuSign status, I can see everybody that's touched this. Notice that my activity history has been updated. I can see who viewed, opened, signed. That printable copy was attached to an email back to gschrader@navient.com, so on and so forth. So there's your full visibility to where things stand within the process. And I'm doing this one document at a time right here, but if I'm like a DocuSign administrator, behind the administration menu, notice there's a DocuSign administration. That allows me to see all of those outstanding DocuSign documents, so everything that's been sent out but has not been completed. So I can see here's one for pending signature that I always have the ability still to come back in here and from the ribbon bar up top, view that envelope history. Same view to what we saw before. This is a different document that we have. But then also to come in here and say, hey, show me all of my completed envelopes, regardless of how that was processed. I can select it, again, view my envelope history to see who has all touched this document from a DocuSign perspective. But there's also an option from DocuSign to say, bring into OnBase a certificate of completion that DocuSign puts together for us. This is even further detailed information about who signed this, when did they sign it. So really a certificate of authenticity related to that particular signature that's going to be stored in your OnBase system, always linked to that particular document that was signed. So there you go. That's the high-level overview from an ad hoc basis. So just to take a few moments away from the presentation, how does it work? There's only a handful of different file types that we can send up to DocuSign. That could be an image file format, whether that be scanned TIFF, a JPEG, a PNG, whatever the case might be. We can take an OnBase stored PDF, route that on up to DocuSign. Text, Microsoft Word, Excel, and PowerPoint files also can be sent to DocuSign and converted appropriately to a PDF. So what DocuSign always brings back to us is a PDF rendition of that particular document. Now, this does work with OnBase revision control. So that EDM services module that a number of you might actually have licensed, it is not required. So you do not need to have revision control. But there may be some subtle differences for what the requirements are for uploading that document to DocuSign, depending upon how your revision and rendition settings are configured for your different document types inside of OnBase. But the key takeaway here is you do not need to have EDM services, but you may wish to have that to be able to maintain that entire revision and version history a little bit different than what we're seeing. As I mentioned before, you can configure multiple signers and the order that they're signing those documents as we go through the process here. So let's take a look at this a little bit differently. Before we were talking ad hoc, but there is a workflow interaction available inside of OnBase Workflow to be able to send to or upload to DocuSign. That's the actual workflow action that would be enabled for you inside of OnBase Workflow to effectively send that document to DocuSign. But what that allows us to do behind the scenes is now tie this with any templates. So rather than on an ad hoc basis say, this is where I need signatures, this is where I need to record additional information, gather dates, initials, so on and so forth, we set up a template once saying this is where I need all of this information. That's going to be set up inside of DocuSign, and a template ID is going to be assigned by DocuSign. We need to take that template ID and now associate that with an OnBase document type, so that when we do now upload that document type at a later point in time to DocuSign, it says, oh, I know what to do with this. I know exactly where all these signatures might need to be. That's great from a static perspective, but above and beyond that, so we need to set that template ID in OnBase for that particular document. But we also need to send to DocuSign who the signers are and their email addresses. So if we can do that programmatically through workflow, it really just becomes a click to send that to DocuSign. There's really no user interaction to be able to say, who does this go to, where do they need to sign, so on and so forth. So that really eliminates all of that manual setup on an ad hoc basis. So everything else really happens in a very similar basis inside of DocuSign. Once we hand it off, it routes, it gets all the signatures, it automatically comes back into OnBase after everything's all said and done. And this workflow interaction is available in all OnBase clients. We'll see in a moment that I can go actually launch this through the workflow interface within the web client. So starting with the Unity client, again, a little bit of a demo here. As we're showing this, I've configured just really a couple simple workflows. So I'm just going to simply come into workflow up here and go into one of the workflows that I've configured. You can see I have standard terms processing workflow. I have a document here. This is a PDF rendition. So again, different file type that we can have, where I can see we need to capture initials on every single page. We have a customer block as well as a Navient signature piece. So multiple signatures. Now behind the scenes, I'm showing you this view edit keywords to show you that I have the customer name, the Navient signer, as well as the DocuSign template ID set programmatically through workflow. So that when I do come in here and actually say send this to DocuSign, it knows that this is going to YYZ company as well as Navient as a secondary signer. I just click on send to DocuSign, off it goes. There's no user interaction here. Obviously, in a real workflow, we probably would route that to somebody else. But again, from here within the Unity client, I can always still come in here and say, view my DocuSign status. That's going to go ahead and say that it's already sent that notification for us to YYZ company, again, using my email address. That's where we currently sit at this point in time. All right. So conversely, our web client. Here's just that different workflow queue where I have this W4 form. This is a fillable PDF where, again, showing you the keywords that I have behind the scenes. This is going to John Q sample, again, using my email address. And again, that DocuSign template ID is actually set up accordingly. I send to DocuSign, off that document goes. It's as simple as that. Now, we're going to talk about this fillable PDF in just a little bit more once we show you things from the recipient perspective. So think this could be used for onboarding new employees also, to be able to capture all of the information from any required documents that you have. Note, I do not have any ability via the right-click menu to view the DocuSign status within the within the web client. It is still there. There's just no mechanism to display that inside the web client. So again, switching gears. Here I am back in my email, where I can see that I've now received a couple emails for my W4 as well as my standard terms and conditions. The use from the recipient, the signer perspective, everything looks all the same. But notice when this pops up, there's our standard terms and conditions. I can click continue and go ahead and start the signing. Takes me to my different initial screens. Now given this is a little bit different one, don't get caught up on my signature's initials. Typically you would only have one, but that allows me to go ahead and say, how do I want my signature to be applied? There's my my street address field. So since that's not stored associated with my signature, I need to provide that information here. Same thing with my city, state, zip. And finally, capture my signature when I click on sign there. Given you can have DocuSign just give you nice standard signatures, or you could actually use like a touch screen to go ahead and capture your own signature. Notice you have the ability to go ahead and log into DocuSign to store that information for futures. So that was that standard terms and conditions, and here's my W-4. Again, that was a fillable PDF when we started out. When I set up that template inside of DocuSign, I said we need to capture all of these fields. My first name, middle initial, my last name, so I can fill out John Q sample here as I come along here. You can see that some of these fields are optional versus required. We fill out that fillable PDF. Really, there was no mapping here. I just set up the system to say, yes, I do require this field, or no, I don't. But you can see the variety of different fields, whether they're checkboxes, numbers, but again, capturing a signature. Here's what it really looks like from that perspective, where I can come in here and say, adopt a new signature, whether you use the style that DocuSign provides, again, taking the text that you have and putting it into a nice view, or you can actually draw your own signature in here using your mouse. If you have a touch screen, you can surely do that. You just adopt and sign. It provides that information. Will automatically drop in any date based upon the current date. And again, as I finish this off, those recipients would get an email with those completed forms in their mailbox. When I come back into OnBase, just to show you now, here's the OnBase Windows client, the thick client. When I come in here and actually retrieve either of these document types, the standard terms and conditions, the W-4 form, there's my two documents. Again, I can double click on any one of those to open the document, or right click, show my package status. Not quite as detailed as the Unity client, but again, shows us where things stand. A double click opens up that PDF. Again, with all the signatures and with all of that signature panel available, built directly inside the PDF file itself. And finally, as we close this down, here's my W-4 form. Again, completed, very similar information that's available to me. Through the document itself, we can get to that package status within the thick client also to view that information. All right. Pretty straightforward information. So lots of capabilities, lots of different ways that you can use this within your organization, but hopefully that's going to show you a little bit technically how this all functions. So how do you get it? The integration for DocuSign eSignature OnBase license is a $15,000 retail license. As I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, that does require that you separately license a DocuSign Enterprise Edition plan. I do not know the licensing costs for those DocuSign pieces, but again, you could talk with DocuSign directly pertaining to that. But you need both of these to make that whole integration work properly. There are some separate OnBase modules that are very complementary to this. Think you could have that revision control that I talked about before. I showed how the workflow interaction could work with this, or even document composition. You want to take some a Word template and actually construct a document based upon some metadata that you have. That document composition works very nicely within the full solution. That creates a Word rendition or a PDF rendition that could easily be sent off to DocuSign. All things said and done, like normal, talk with your Navient account executive to talk through the different scenarios that you might be looking for using this product, and we should be able to help you identify what the licensing and any services might be associated to putting this into your environment. And finally, our last slide here, recap. Again, what we're really talking about is seamlessly integrating OnBase with that DocuSign signature service. You're using OnBase to store the documents and then workflow to create and manage the documents to be signed. Let DocuSign do what it does fabulously. get that document to anybody in the world, get the signatures, they send the notifications, and then after everything's all said and done, all those signatures are gained, DocuSign is satisfied, it automatically returns that document to OnBase for whatever that final processing might be, and we always have that full OnBase audit trail available to us. So that was Whirlwind, and I know that we're at our 30 minutes time here, but I wanted to leave a few minutes at the end here for any questions. While you're posing any questions within the GoToWebinar panel, just wanted to give you a quick pitch for our February webinar being put on by our customer success team. On February 19th, they're going to be doing a webinar on system administration tips and tricks. So please keep an eye open for any email notification to register for that coming up very shortly. So let me take a look at my questions here and see what we have here. First question, for documents outstanding and waiting for signature, can you schedule a reminder email to that individual to sign? That's a good question. I think that you could probably designate your workflow, if you're using workflow, to invoke that sending with a timer, saying if I don't get that completely delivered package back, that DocuSign packet, go ahead and send an email notification coming from OnBase and Workflow. That's really the caveat. That would come from OnBase. It would not be through the DocuSign service whatsoever. So there might be a little bit of a disconnect, but I'm sure that that can be done from that perspective. Do you only need the integration if you're sending documents out for eSign that are stored in OnBase? Correct. Really, it's a full circle process for the OnBase integration that's there. OnBase does not know to pick up a document from DocuSign unless we sent it to DocuSign. So if you're just bringing documents in, using DocuSign maybe just independently to get those signatures, and you get that PDF back, you're going to have to figure out some mechanism to get that into OnBase in an automated fashion, short of manually indexing those documents as they come back through. And the last question that I have outstanding right here is the DocuSign integration compatible with OnBase Agenda? Again, a really good question. It really somewhat depends upon how you're using OnBase Agenda. The agenda management component of OnBase, think what that's really doing. The main piece is that we're managing upcoming agendas. Now, any of those agenda items or documents that we're creating as a result of an agenda, such as the agenda, the minutes, any of the supporting documents that go along with it, can be routed through OnBase Workflow. So I would foresee that Workflow would be the proper place to now configure that DocuSign integration to say, okay, do I need to send this out? Who do I send this out to? And again, bring that document back in automatically after it was signed. I know that one's probably a little bit of a light response there, Lori, but if you do want to talk about that a little bit further, please reach out to your account rep. I'd be more than happy to get on a conference call and we can talk through the potential scenarios a little bit further with you. With that seems to be all of our questions. I will stick on just for a few more minutes if you do have a burning question, but for everybody else, thank you for taking the time. I'm sorry I'm a couple minutes over, but I hope that you found this beneficial, and again, contact your account rep if you want to talk about this further, and hope that you can find some potential uses for the integration for DocuSign going forward. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great day.